Okay, so you're looking for like a crash course in Assassin's Creed, right?
Yeah.
Trying to wrap your head around this massive world,
Uh-huh.
all those
Yeah.
historical periods and characters and conspiracies.
Right.
It can be a bit overwhelming. Like, where do you even begin?
It really can.
But you're in the right place because today we're diving deep into the Assassin's Creed universe,
That's right.
specifically as it's presented in this really cool Legends of the Creed excerpt you sent over.
It's a great jumping off point
It is.
because it touches on so many key aspects, like the overarching narrative, the major characters, the historical settings.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to do is we're going to extract the essence of it all,
Yeah.
We're going to pull out the most intriguing and crucial elements so you can really grasp
The
all
core,
of the story.
yeah, the heart of the saga.
Exactly.
So one thing that struck me right off the bat is that the excerpt doesn't actually start in some ancient time period,
Right.
like you might expect with a title like Creed. Instead, it throws us right into the present day with this guy named Desmond Miles.
Interesting choice, right?
Yeah, I was like, wait, who is this guy? Why should I care?
Well, Desmond is actually the linchpin. The entire story revolves around him in a way.
Okay.
Because you see, he's this seemingly ordinary dude, but he has this extraordinary lineage.
Okay.
And he gets kidnapped by this shady corporation called Abstergo Industries.
Abstergo.
Yeah, and they turn out to be the modern-day Templars.
What?
Yeah, it's all connected. The Templars have been around for centuries, always working in the shadows.
Wow. Okay.
And they're after Desmond for a very specific reason. His DNA
His being...
His DNA contains the genetic memories of his assassin ancestors.
Hold on, wait, that's a thing?
That's the premise of the whole Assassin's Creed universe. It's this blend of science fiction and historical fiction.
Wow, okay, I'm already hooked.
Good.
But how do they even access those memories?
Well, that's where this super cool piece of tech comes in called the Animus. Yeah, you can think of it like a virtual reality machine, but is way more advanced.
Okay.
It allows Desmond to literally relive the lives of his ancestors as if he was there.
Whoa, that's creepy.
It is.
So through the Animus, Desmond, jumps into the past.
Exactly. And the first ancestor we encounter through him is Altair ibn Lahad.
Altair.
Yeah, a badass assassin during the Third Crusade.
Wow, okay, so we're talking swords and knights and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Epic battles, secret societies. It's got it all.
This is get good.
And Altair's story is all about redemption. He starts off kind of disgraced, he's made some mistakes and he has to work his way back up within the Assassin Brotherhood.
Okay, so there's already this established order of assassins.
Oh, yeah, they've been around for centuries, fighting for freedom and free will against the Templars.
The Templars, so it's like this secret war going on throughout history.
That's the core conflict of the entire saga, this clash of ideologies.
Wow.
And it's during Altair's time that we get introduced to these mysterious artifacts called the Pieces of Eden.
Pieces of Eden. What are those, some kind of holy relics?
They're more than just relics. They're incredibly powerful objects that can influence mind control technology, even alter reality itself.
Seriously?
Yeah. The game doesn't explicitly tell you what they are or where they came from at first, but it's clear they hold this immense power, and both the Assassins and the Templars are vying for control of them.
So there's this whole other layer to the conflict, beyond just the two groups themselves.
That's exactly. It's not as simple as good guys versus bad guys. It's much more nuanced than that.
Okay. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So after Altair, the excerpt jumps ahead a few centuries to Renaissance Italy and introduces us to Ezio Auditore.
Ezio fan favorite.
He's pretty iconic, right?
Absolutely. Ezio's story is probably the most well-known and beloved in the entire series.
Why is that?
Well, for one thing, his journey is just so compelling. He starts off as this carefree nobleman, living the good life in Florence.
Okay.
But then tragedy strikes his family, is betrayed and executed by the Templars. Yeah, it's brutal. And Ezio witnesses it all firsthand.
That's heavy.
It is. And this event completely transforms him. He vows revenge and sets out on this path to become an assassin.
So he's driven by vengeance at first.
Yeah, but that's just the beginning. His story spans 3 whole games.
3 games?
Yeah, Assassin's Creed 2nd, Brotherhood, and Revelations.
That's a lot of Ezio.
It is, but you see him grow and evolve over time from this hot-headed youth to a wise and compassionate leader.
So he becomes more than just a revenge-driven killer.
Exactly. He embraces the true creed of the assassins, fighting for freedom and justice, not just for himself, but for all of humanity.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and along the way, he confronts some of the most powerful figures of the Renaissance, like Rodrigo Borgia.
The Pope?
The Pope himself
Oh,
is
yeah.
also the Grand Master of the Templars.
So it's all connected again.
Always.
Okay, so Ezio's like this legendary figure then, right?
Oh, yeah. He's considered one of the greatest assassins ever.
And the excerpt mentions something about him leaving behind keys to the future.
Right. That line is super intriguing because it hints at this ongoing legacy, you know? Ezio's actions have repercussions that will be felt centuries later.
So his story is just one piece of this much larger puzzle.
Exactly.
Okay, so from Renaissance Italy, the excerpt then takes us across the Atlantic to the American Revolution.
And that's where we meet Connor Kenway.
On air.
Yeah, he's got this really unique background. He's half Native American, half British.
Oh, wow. So he's caught between two worlds,
Literally.
especially during that time period.
Yeah, the American Revolution is a really pivotal moment in history, and Connor's heritage puts him right in the middle of it.
So he's fighting for freedom, but from both sides in a way.
You could say that he sees the injustices being perpetrated by both the British and the colonists.
And where do the Templars fit into all of this?
Well, as always, they're pulling strings behind the scenes, trying to manipulate the conflict to their advantage.
So they're not necessarily taking sides, they're just looking out for themselves.
Exactly. They're playing the long game, always working towards their own goals.
Wow, it's like they're the puppet masters of history.
It's a recurring theme throughout the series, this idea that history is shaped by these secret forces.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the excerpt also briefly mentions Connor's grandfather, Edward Kenway.
Ah, Edward, another iconic character?
Yeah, he's the star of Black Flag, right?
That's right.
But he's not exactly a revolutionary, is he?
Not at first. Edward starts off as a pirate, pure and simple.
Okay, so we're talking full-on Jack Sparrow vibes.
Uh-huh, yeah. He's got that roguish charm and a thirst for adventure.
I can see the appeal.
Oh, yeah. Edward is a very different kind of assassin, at least initially.
What do you mean?
Well, he's driven by self-interest at first, you know? He wants treasure, he wants freedom, he wants to make a name for himself.
But he eventually becomes an assassin.
He does.
How does that happen?
Well, through his experiences, you know, he gets caught up in this larger conflict between the assassins and the Templars.
Yeah.
And he starts to see the world differently. He starts to understand the true meaning of freedom and what it means to fight for something bigger than himself.
So it's like a journey of self-discovery.
It is, and his story in Black Flag is all about that evolution from pirate to assassin.
That's a cool arc.
Yeah, and it shows that the Assassin Brotherhood isn't just this rigid order anyone can join.
As long as they believe in the creed.
Exactly.
Okay, so from pirates and revolutions, the excerpt then jumps way back in time to ancient Egypt.
To the very origins of the Brotherhood.
Yeah, with Bayek and Aya.
Origins is a really important game in the series because it explores how the Assassin Order came to be.
Okay, so this is like the foundation of everything.
It is, and what's interesting is that their journey starts with tragedy.
Tragedy.
Yeah, Bayek and Aya, they lose their son in a really horrific way.
Well, that's awful.
It is, and that loss is what drives them. It fuels their desire to fight against injustice and oppression.
So the Assassin Brotherhood is born out of grief and a desire for change.
Exactly.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is, and their story is set in ancient Egypt, which is just such a rich and fascinating setting.
Yeah, I mean, pyramids, pharaohs, all that stuff.
It's incredible, and the game does a great job of bringing that world to life.
And is this where that famous assassin motto comes from?
You mean, nothing is true, everything is permitted?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's first spoken in Origins, and it perfectly encapsulates the assassin philosophy, you know?
How so?
Well, it's all about questioning everything, challenging authority, and forging your own path.
I see.
The assassins believe that there's no one truth, no one right way to live your life,
Okay.
and that you have the freedom to choose your own destiny.
So it's about embracing free will.
Exactly.
That's pretty deep.
It is.
Okay, so before we move on from ancient times, the excerpt also mentions Odyssey.
Ah, yes. Odyssey, another sprawling adventure.
So this one takes place in ancient Greece, right?
It does, and it actually takes place even before Origins chronologically.
Okay, so this is like pre-Brotherhood.
Yeah, it features a protagonist named either Cassandra or Alexios, depending on your choice.
Okay.
And their story delves even deeper into the lore of the Assassin's Creed universe.
How so?
Well, for one thing, it directly connects their bloodline to the first civilization, also known as the Isu.
Isu.
Yeah, they're this ancient precursor race that created those pieces of Eden we were talking about earlier.
Oh, wow. So we're going way back now.
Odyssey really expands the scope of the story by introducing these mythological elements.
Mythological.
Yeah, it suggests that the Isu were like gods to the ancient humans.
That's pretty wild.
It is, and it raises all sorts of questions about human origins and the nature of reality itself.
I could see how that would tie into the whole nothing is true, everything is permitted philosophy.
Exactly. It challenges the very foundations of what we believe to be true.
So Odyssey is like a link between the historical and the mythical.
You could say that.
Okay, so after ancient Greece, we fast forward again this time to the Viking Age with Valhalla.
Another epic setting.
Yeah, I mean, Vikings are always cool.
They are.
So what's going on in Valhalla?
Well, it follows the story of Ivar, a Viking raider who gets caught up in the conflict between the Hidden Ones.
Hidden Ones.
They're essentially the assassins, but they're operating under a different name in this time period.
Okay,
And they're fighting against the Order of the Ancients, which is just another name for the Templars.
so same old conflict, different names.
Exactly.
Mhm.
The struggle between freedom and control is timeless, and it manifests in different ways throughout history.
I see.
And Valhalla also marks a transition in the modern-day storyline.
Oh, how so?
Well, Desmond Miles, he kind of disappears from the picture.
Disappears.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, but we won't spoil it here.
Okay, fair enough.
And a new character emerges, Layla Hassan.
Lila.
She becomes the new protagonist in the modern-day storyline.
So she's like the present-day connection to the historical events.
Exactly. She continues Desmond's work using the Animus to explore the past and fight against the Templars.
So even though we're jumping around all over history, there's this consistent thread in the present day.
There is, and it's all building towards something bigger.
Okay, I'm hooked. I need to know more.
Haha. Well, that's the beauty of the Assassin's Creed universe. There's always more to discover.
So when you take a step back and look at the big picture as the excerpt summarizes, it really comes down to this age-old battle between the Assassins and the Templars.
Exactly. It's a clash of ideologies, a conflict that has been raging for centuries.
But it's not black and white, is it?
No, it's not. Both sides have their own valid points in a way.
Okay, explain that.
Well, the Assassins, they believe in free will and the right of individuals to make their own choices, even if it leads to chaos.
Okay.
They see the Templars as control freaks who want to impose their will on everyone else.
But the Templars don't see it that way.
No, they believe that order is necessary for peace and progress.
Okay.
They see humanity as flawed and easily corrupted, and they think that strong leadership is needed to guide us.
So they're like the authoritarian dad, and the Assassins are the rebellious teenagers.
Something like that.
It's an interesting dynamic.
It is, and it's what makes the conflict so compelling because neither side is completely right or wrong.
It's all about perspective.
Exactly.
And then you've got these pieces of Eden thrown into the mix, which just add another layer of complexity.
Right. These artifacts represent ultimate power, and both sides want them for different reasons.
The Assassins want to protect them from being misused.
Right, while the Templars want to use them to establish their control.
And then you got all these different historical settings and characters and storylines weaving together.
It's a tapestry.
It is. And it's amazing how the games manage to make it all feel connected.
Yeah, it's a testament to the writers and the developers.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the sheer scope of the Assassin's Creed universe, I hope this deep dive has helped to break it down.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, but we've really only scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore, the deeper lore, the mythology, the individual stories.
It's a rabbit hole.
It is, but it's a fascinating one.
And I think what's really cool about the Assassin's Creed saga is that it's not just a bunch of video games.
Right.
It's a reflection of history, philosophy, even politics.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about the world in a different way.
It does, and it asks some really big questions about human nature, power, and the meaning of freedom.
And it's still going strong.
Oh yeah, the saga is still evolving with new games and stories being released all the time.
So there's always something new to discover.
Always.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It has been a journey.
It has. But hopefully it's inspired you to learn even more about the Assassin's Creed universe.
There's a whole world waiting out there.
And who knows, maybe you'll even start seeing those historical connections in your own life.
You might be surprised.
Food for thought.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Assassin's Creed.
My pleasure.
Until next time.